All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the DATAcated show. Today, I'm excited to talk to you all about going from data to dashboard with Qlik Sense. I'm actually on a mission here with the DATAcated Academy to build a data to dashboard course series that basically includes several different courses. Currently, we have data to dashboard with Power BI, data to dashboard with Tableau Public. We have a Qlik Sense course that's launching in the next 2 days, March 18th, and we are also working on a data to dashboard with Python Plotly Dash course, which launches next week. In addition to that, I think we'll probably have anywhere between 15 to 20 different data to dashboard courses that essentially take the same data and build a very similar dashboard using very different tools. And I think it'll be great for acting as a one-stop shop for anybody who wants to get into data visualization, but maybe doesn't know which tool to start with. This could be a great way for them to explore all the different tools that are available. Now, with me here today, I'm actually going to bring in a special guest, Cody Riemenschneider. I truly hope I said his name correctly. I'm going to go ahead and bring him up on the virtual stage here. Hello, Cody.
Hey, Kate, how's it going?
Great, great. Did I say your name correctly? Let's start with that.
Yes, you said it perfectly.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome to the DATAcated show. I think before we get into the actual topic of data, dashboard, and Qlik Sense, let's hear a little bit about you.
Yeah. So first off, thanks, Kate, for having me on. I appreciate it. Doing the course with you is really good. Hopefully, everyone who takes it, enjoys just as much as we did creating it. It's really fun. All skill levels, I think, would really appreciate it. So, definitely go ahead and take a look. It's a really fun course. Of course, that's my biased opinion. But just start off, like Kate said, my name is Cody Riemenschneider. Been in the data and analytics space for about 5 years now. Graduated with a math, computer science, and economics degree from Dickinson College, which is in a small school in central Pennsylvania. Been in the data analytics field, like I said, for about 5 years now, both in the pharmaceutical, sports, entertainment, industrial, manufacturing spaces, so a lot of different areas. Probably for the past 2 or 3 years now, really focused my talent and skills, and especially on that storytelling with data, which we'll be going over more today. But really interacting with users, the implementation of data, how to better interact with data. So in the past 2 to 3 years, that's been really my focus. And again, something you'll see in the course too, if you go ahead and take the course, that interaction with data. Again, how can we make data talk and tell that story?
Absolutely. Thank you. And so you said math, computer science, and economics? Was that a triple major?
It was the dual major, math and computer science, and then minor in economics.
Wow. Okay. That seems intense. Congratulations on that. I only had one major. It was finance and a minor in communication. So it seems like cakewalk. All right. Awesome. So thanks so much for providing that introduction. Just going over to the comment, I see some people are just saying, hello, everybody. And oh, look, Joe's here. Hello, Joe Warpington. Nice to see you. Okay, so people that are currently live with us right now, we have a special treat because we are actually giving away one of your Data to Dashboard with Qlik Sense courses. So go ahead and leave comments, ask questions. We'll randomly select the winner at the end of the session and we'll announce them and give them access, because I know the course officially launches on March 18th, but Cody is just so fast and such a great instructor. He got this done way ahead of schedule. And now the course is actually available to start viewing, even though it officially launches on March 18th. On that note, I'll quickly just let you know, if you are interested in getting the course, we're currently running a pre-sale of 30% off the course price if you use Qlik 30 at checkout. And it's Qlik as in Qlik, not as in, Qlik. So Cody, speaking of Qlik, let's go into, why do you use Qlik? How did that all get started? Because I know there's so many tools out there. So I'd love to hear your journey there.
Yeah. So, my first exposure to Qlik was about 5 years ago. It was my first internship out of college in the pharmaceutical area. And we had someone come in from Qlik that, basically rolled out the tool. Our only BI tool, if you can call it that, was, our big Excel files that tended to break every couple seconds, when you tried to click on something. So we had someone come in from Qlik, and that was my first exposure to it. So, Qlik can do an endless amount of things, whenever you want to use it, and in its simplest form, when my first exposure to it was, recreating Excel files and Excel visuals in the Qlik. Massive Excel files that tend to break time and time again being loaded in the Qlik. And that was my first exposure to it. Nowadays, it's more advanced analytics, machine learning, AI, forecasting, and those sort of things. And that's one of the things I like about Qlik is, you can use it in its very simplest form. I was talking to someone earlier, I use it for my fantasy football league. But then I also use it in my day-to-day job when we're looking at machine learning and AI in the factory and, rolling out forecasting and stuff like that. So, no matter your ability, no matter what your degree or background is, it's one of those tools that you can use it in its very simplest form, or you can go really complex really quick with it. So that was my first exposure to Qlik.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So I've used Qlik before as well, and I wanted to get your take on this. Do you think it's a good tool for somebody, let's say, just starting out in data analysis, data visualization, who has never used any tool, maybe outside of Excel, getting their hands onto data viz tools? Would you recommend it?
I do, and like I said, to piggyback off of the simple and complex forms, the reason why I like Qlik, and other BI tools might be able to do this. I don't have exposure to all the array of tools that eventually will be on our dedicated mission there. But from what I've seen, Qlik as a positive byproduct, it allows the users to interact with their data. Right. So you build out your elaborate dashboard, you start interacting with it. As a byproduct of it, it forces you to understand your data more, right? So reports that you get in your email, a quick screenshot PDF that might tell you, daily sales or weekly trends are great. They're one-stop shop, screenshot, perfect, right? But when you're interacting with a Qlik application and a Qlik sheet, you're hands-on with your data. It almost forces you to learn how your data interacts with what you're selecting. So for someone just starting out with, whether they have a computer science degree, a math degree, or a finance degree, it's one of those tools that you can just upload an Excel file, something that we show in the course, in a matter of clicks, and that pun was highly intended. In just a matter of clicks, you can have your dashboard built out and learn to interact with it. And like I said, as a positive byproduct, you get to learn your data and how it interacts, with it. So like I said, no matter what your skill level is, it's one of those tools that anyone can learn and interact with. And Qlik has that perfect drag and drop capabilities. Where if maybe you're just exposed to Excel, it's really hands-on, it's really user-friendly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that low barrier to start is so important because it's easy to get discouraged, right? I tried, for example, coding, like R and Python, and even getting your data into the programming language area, it was already like, okay, so I need to write this code, and if I mistype or add a period or a comma, and it throws the whole thing off and you get crazy errors. Whereas I think these BI tools make it so easy for the user to simply drag, drop, and see what happens, kind of experiment without feeling like they're going to break something.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Qlik is, you use the example of Excel, right? So, in its simplest form, Excel, when you're summing, when you're averaging, taking min and maxes and doing simple expressions, that translates right over into Qlik, where, Qlik has its own language behind the scenes, but how you sum something in Excel, it's virtually the same thing in Qlik. If you're summing a field, it's, sum, open, close, parenthesis, the field you want to sum. In its simplest form. And like I said, you can go complex with it pretty rapidly. But if you're someone just starting out, maybe with just an Excel background, the transition's pretty seamless. And like you said, that drag and drop functionality, you don't need to know where the comma goes for my whole thing to break. You can drag, drop, and the capabilities that are just defaulted in the Qlik make it really easy to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly hop over to the comments. We got Anusha saying hello. Natalie, this is actually my sister. So I rarely stream to Facebook, and I never know if people are actually watching, but I guess she hopped in. Hello, thanks for joining. And George Fairkin is here saying, nice to see another course coming out of the DATAcated Academy. Thank you, George. So speaking of the course, Cody, who do you think would benefit from this course from the Qlik Sense course?
I mean, in its simplest form, I do think the people that would benefit the most from this course and get the most out of it is that beginner to intermediate level. People, I mean, the things that we establish in this course, first trying to get the data into the application, how to build visuals, how to start to tell that story and interact with some of the visuals we do. If you've been in Qlik for 5-10 years, right? I mean, this is going to be a really nice review for you. Like any software, I'm left Googling some things, how to do this, how to do that. So you might pick up on some things. But it's, really, I think it's tailored toward that beginner, someone just starting out, wants to get familiar with the BI tool. I think Qlik is perfect for that because of that drag and drop type of user experience. It's really intuitive once you get used to it. And again, that beginning stage of how do I interact with my data? Maybe you've worked with different BI tools before. This course would be great because I think it's one of those courses, Kate, as you said, you don't need, to know coding to go ahead and do it, to know how to do it. So maybe you do have that R or Python background, but you want more of that visual background, that more drag and drop from a different BI tool. I think Qlik is perfect for that. But again, that beginner and intermediate, someone just starting out, maybe you, like you said, use the Excel example. I'm a data beast within Excel, but I want to learn something different. Again, I think Qlik would be a really nice transition for that person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then in terms of getting access, so there is currently a free trial, right, that people can get to actually play with the software while they take the course.
Yeah. So right now Qlik has a 30-day trial on their software. It's really easy. You put your name if you're associated with the company, fill out just have a short form. They'll email you, and that's something we go over in the training as well. They'll email you a bunch of links, how to set up a username, and then you're right into it. So really, sky's the limit from there. In the course, we use an Excel file to load into the application. As a default, I think Qlik has a couple dozen different databases and different things you connect to pull data in. We don't go into that in this course. But yeah, 30-day trial to get started. Honestly, in my opinion, that's more than enough time to fall in love with the tool. One of the things, and Kate, you mentioned, people that are going to follow along, that are taking the course. In my opinion, this is what I tell everyone, one of my users that I train, everyone that I train, I tell them that Qlik, you can watch any YouTube video as long as you want. Qlik is one of those tools that you have to use it to know it. You can't just watch the video, right? You have to follow along. I'm a big believer in learning by doing. I think the way you structure all your dedicated courses, and the way I teach the course, I think it's gonna be really easy for people to follow along and really be into the training rather than just watching minutes long videos and hopefully not get too bored, but in these videos, really follow along. And Qlik's one of those tools that make it really easy for people that are following along to follow along and know what they're doing.
Yeah, that was exactly the vision for the whole Data to Dashboard series. Is you could probably Google most of this, right? You can find YouTube videos. The goal is to create a course that's somewhere between 60 to 90 minutes long that takes you from data to dashboard in the simplest way possible, telling you just what you need, and enabling you to basically take that tool and use a different data set to create a different dashboard, but giving you those basic skills of how do we actually build these dashboards, and basically trying to save you some time from doing all that research. So that's why I went out to experts like Cody here for Qlik, because though I could probably have learned Qlik enough to teach the course, I wanted to get the experts who know the tool the best, because I feel like there are different ways you can teach. There are different ways you can actually do something in a tool. And I wanted to make sure we're doing things in the right way. And on that note, we also have a bonus section. So Cody, why don't you briefly tell the audience about what's included, or maybe at least one or two things that's included in your bonus section.
So I mean, throughout the course, we go over, the basic backbone, the skeleton of how to build and tell the story of the dashboard, right? So our course that we create is built around, telling a story. And we do that in the main section of the course. With Qlik, and like any BI tool or software from a technology standpoint, there's always that one extra thing. And Qlik is, not immune to that. I mean, you can go above and beyond and create some really elaborate stuff that we unfortunately don't get a chance to go into in the course. You could probably do 5 to 10 hours worth of content in there and probably not even scratch the surface, like any BI tool. But one of the things that we go into is creating targets. So in my, professional career, my experience, you're always measuring yourself up against something, right? So the most common one is sales. In our course, we do YouTube videos, total views and different traffic sources, right? So one of the sessions that I do in the bonus feature is, current month versus last month, or this traffic source versus this traffic source. How to conditional format our KPIs to say, hey, if it's under our target, label it red. If it's above our target, call it green. So a lot of conditional formatting, adding additional KPIs to targets, and really just added functionality. One of the things that I really love about Qlik is the extra functionality it brings. So in the main section of the course, we go into a lot of how to change the default settings along with the visuals. And I think it was 4 or 5 different bonus sessions. We go the next layer further and say, okay, how do we add just a little bit more to it? So I'm not going to spoil it anymore, but that's some of the essence that we go into in the bonus features there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And interestingly, so I mentioned my sister joined on Facebook. Now here's Kristen joining through Twitter's Periscope. I don't think I ever had anybody join through Twitter. So thank you. It's interesting how we have people from kind of all over the place today. And Joe's back. He says he totally agrees. You have to get your hands on and build stuff. Have fun with it and bring in some data that you know really well. I used it to help pick a name for our first child. Wow. Joe, really? Pulled every name from a government website and built a name popularity dashboard. Okay, can we know the name? Now I'm super what the name ended up being. That's really interesting. Okay, I actually wanted to share my screen because I realized it actually might make things easier as we walk through what people can expect to see in the course. So I'll go ahead and share. So this is the landing page on the DATAcated Academy, and it basically gives you an overview of what's covered in the course. So we define what's a dashboard, provide an overview of Qlik Sense, and walk through kind of how do you install and download it. We do explore that sample data set. It's a very simple data set. It's essentially my YouTube data from last year. And I wanted to keep things simple because I wanted to focus on the actual dashboard building in the tool versus the data cleansing and structuring for this course. Then we load the data into Qlik Sense, provide an overview of the basic layout, kind of where do you find things in the tool. Then writing the narrative for the data analysis, which essentially sets the stage for the actual dashboard. We sketch the dashboard on paper and use the DATAcated chart selector guide, which is actually part of the course. You get this 30-page PDF that goes into all the best practices for when to use specific charts and graphs. And then Cody's big section is right here. And clearly he covers everything that's related to Qlik Sense, but he spends a lot of time here on building the dashboard directly in Qlik Sense. He's a great instructor. I've actually taken the course and I feel like I can build my own dashboard in Qlik Sense after taking his section of the course. And then he does do a great walkthrough of how do you actually format some of those default settings. I'm a big believer in taking that extra 15, 20 minutes or sometimes even a few hours to really get your formatting right, because that can really help you tell that story. So he does a great job there. And then eventually publishing saving the dashboard. And if you wanted to look through the full curriculum, you can actually check that out here and get a sense for what's actually included in this course. Oh, look, Cody, that's you. So just wanted to quickly share that. And you can find this if you go to DATAcatedacademy.com. All right, Joe said the name was Jack. Okay, there you go. Thanks for that. And Robert says, this sounds exciting. Thank you, Robert. So Cody, we started kind of talking about storytelling and how we can transform a visual by changing some of those default settings. So, and I think your title on LinkedIn is literally data storyteller, right? So I wanted to ask, do you have any data storytelling or data visualization tips that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, so data storyteller is my official title on LinkedIn there. That's something I have a passion for. I mean, back in college, I still really didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of high school and then college. Believe it or not, my first try at college, I wanted to be an actuary. So I studied a lot of statistics and actuarial science. And after 2 years, I took my first computer class, and that's where I fell in love with data. And my advisor, always told me that you'll have people that love to develop. You'll have people that love the business side of things. There's not too many people that can do both, right? So tell that story. Be able to develop something, teach it, and then teach it to that non-technical audience. So that's something that I really specialize something, and that's where my passion lies, and hopefully people see that throughout the course. So really being able to tell that story is something I'm passionate about. So I mean, tips for when I'm building a dashboard, and for someone that's either just starting out or has been through this many times, the one thing, I mean, people have probably all heard it before, is keep it simple. The age-old, KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid type of stuff. In my experience, what I found is the majority of the time, the most simple charts can solve the most complex problems, right? So I used this example earlier. At the end of the day, Qlik allows you to create some really cool, really technical, in-depth stuff, right? I mean, you can go sky's the limit, but when you're creating stuff for different people that's not yourself, right? At the end of the day, they don't care about that nested if statement that's 200 lines long that just turned the color red when you start. They don't care about that. It's not personal, right? But they don't care. At the end of the day, they care about, okay, how will this help me? How will this solve my problem, right? And if that's just a bar chart that's 2 colors, so be it, right? So my take on this is keep it simple. Sometimes the most simplest charts can solve the most complex problems. So one of my professors always told me, back when I was coding, was code a little, test a little, was his theory. So when I'm building applications, after you've put on a few dashboards, stop, ask yourself, does this solve their problem? And it does, stop. Meet with them, get their feedback on it before you go any further down that rabbit hole. That's one of my first advice. The second advice is know your audience, know your user, right? So I talked a little bit about training the non-technical audience. And a lot of the time in my experience, people don't have that computer science background. They don't have that data background. Again, they just want to know the answer to a problem, right? So in my experience, when I say know your audience, know your users, try to better understand their problems. The more you understand their problems and their data behind the scenes, the better you can create a dashboard for them, because you know what problem they're trying to solve. If you're just looking at a random Excel file, not know what the problem is, it's going to be very hard for you to tell that story, right? So know your audience, know their problem, be able to relate to them while you're building that. And secondly, lastly, from a building dashboard standpoint, and this is more of a personal preference more than advice, but kind of go top to bottom, right? So as humans, we're accustomed to starting at the top, right? We don't look at a dashboard and go right to the bottom, right? We're always top to bottom, left to right readers the majority of the time. So my best practice when building a dashboard, and you'll see a little bit of it in our course, is KPI should go on top, right? Those are your big heavy hitters, high overview. The middle granularity should go in the middle, and then your last detail should go on the bottom, being able to go from top to bottom, because people read top to bottom the majority of the time. So that would be my 3 kind of best practices in creating the dashboard, teaching the data, and trying to tell that story.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Susan Walsh is here. She said, great advice. So she definitely agrees. I agree with everything you said. I love especially the keep it simple. I think some of these tools make it so easy for us to just keep clicking and dragging and dropping and creating the craziest chart alive. Not the charts are alive, but you get what I'm saying. And it gets so confusing. So I think you always have to keep your audience and user in mind and make it as simple as possible to share that message. You mentioned simple charts, so I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite chart? That's a weird question.
I do. No, I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of a combination. So I think when you mention, charts are alive, to me, they tell a story, and to me, they talk. To me, data talks. You can't hide the truth when it comes to data. I'm a big sports fan, so when you play replays, like on NFL, the replays don't lie. The data doesn't lie, right? So when you're looking at a dashboard, the charts talk to you, they tell that story. So my favorite combination of charts is a bar chart or a line chart combined with what I call a summary table, right? So, you have a bar chart that could be, trending of sales or YouTube views over time, right? But then you also supplement that with a summary chart or a tabular view of that data. And where my professional experience, it's great to interact with the data. It's great from a visual standpoint. But when I'm clicking around and getting to that most granularity level, I want to see what makes up that data, right? So it's great that our YouTube videos last month were 10 above target. Okay, but where do they come from? And that's where that summary table kind of comes in a little bit. So for me, it's not just one chart specifically, but it's that combination of, call it a bar chart and what I call a summary table. To me, that tells a story. It tells a story of trends over time, and it tells me how did I get there. And the whole point where I specialize in is how do I create a dashboard that not only tells a story, but then also creates action off that story, right? It's not just an FYI, it's an action forward.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And now on the note of charts, I also wanted to get your thoughts on the concept of a pie chart or donut chart. I know there's some debates out there of like death to pie charts, but wanted to get your thoughts on it since you love data storytelling so much.
Yes. So there's actually studies out there that there's like the top 5 visuals not to use in a large data set, and a pie chart and donut chart are actually 2 out of the top 5, right? So I believe pie charts is a best practice for me. Anytime you have more than like 8 to 10 different fields within a dimension, it becomes very hard to read, right? So as soon as those slithers start to get so small, it doesn't make sense anymore. So when you have a certain limited data set, so we use a pie chart in our course, and it's great for what we're trying to use it for because we're seeing the distribution over a very limited set, and they're big chunks of the data. So in this case, it really works for us. If you have 20 and beyond fields in a certain dimension, and you have little tiny slithers, it no longer tells that story, right? So I think in one of the research that was done was you should be able to look at a chart and not have it explained to you. So to me, the best dashboards and best visuals don't need a lot of labels. If you need a ton of labels and a text box next to it that says this is how you use it, it's probably not the best visual. As far as the pie chart versus donut, I wouldn't say death to pie charts, right there, but I would choose. I think I would choose a pie chart over a donut only because more people are used to seeing it. Although donut charts are really cool and they're different. Yeah. At the end of the day, pie charts to me are just old school and they tell the story just fine.
Yeah, I think I only use donuts over pies when I have another KPI to include in that center. But it definitely depends. Sometimes that confuses people. So again, going back to knowing your audience and your user.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yep, there is a lot of, Qlik has it, and we don't go into the course because it is one of those layered functionalities, but there are donut charts out there where you're embedding different KPIs in there, right? So the edge of the donut shows the distribution, but the center says the total share, right? Or something like that. And I think that tells a really cool story. But yeah, that's kind of my take on pie charts in general. Or MySpace now, we used to always use pie charts as one of our main go-to visuals. We've since gotten away from that just because our dashboards have gotten more elaborate and our user group has gotten more elaborate with it.
Yeah, I remember being specifically asked to include a pie chart just to spice things up. I'm like, but this is not a good chart. They're like, yeah, but we have all these bar charts. I'm like, yeah, that's what they're used for. You just wanted to see something round to mix things up in the dashboard. So.
Now now as far as distribution, and I'm not sure, Kate, if you ever heard this term before, but for everyone watching this, I would go out and research what's called a Sankey chart. If you're looking for a distribution chart, that to me is one of the most underutilized charts that takes a pie chart to a whole other dimension. So people that aren't familiar with the Sankey chart, go and Google it and research it. It's really cool. Once you have a perfect use case for it, it's perfect. You'll never use a pie chart again.
Yeah, I like tree maps. If you've seen those, it's basically like a rectangle cut into multiple rectangles.
Yep.
As a pie chart, especially if I'm working with a lot of dimensions. I typically limit pie chart usage to anything, like you said, less than 8 dimensions or so. But a tree map, sometimes if you have even 100 different items that you want to look at, a tree map can really help just slicing that rectangle. There's some psychology behind the fact that humans are better at recognizing differences in sizes of rectangles over slices.
Mm-hmm. Why not?
Yes, and Joe's adding to this. So he says, I was told years ago, it isn't a business intelligence report if it doesn't have a pie chart. He does not subscribe to this knowledge. Okay, good. That's funny. So before we wrap, I just want to touch on one more topic, and it's the use of color. When you were talking about your kind of go-to tips for data storytelling, you mentioned, a simple bar chart with maybe 2 colors. Yep. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the use of color. I know we could probably spend, 5 hours just talking about this topic, but do you have any specific do's and don'ts for proper use of color?
Yeah, it goes back to it has to solve the problem, right? Yeah. So, if I have a bar chart and, I have it broken out, 20 different ways of 20 different colors, does it help me at all? If it helps me, then great. Let's use it. It shows, especially in Qlik, you can, color by dimension on a time series graph, for example. It really shows me, for the month of May, what was my distribution? And it shows me those chunks. But to me, it has to tell a story. Probably my favorite is, target wise, red, yellow, green. It tells a simple, it's no matter where you live, what country you're from, right? Green is good, red's bad, right? So it's
not always.
Not always.
Not in China. It's the opposite in China.
But it's one of those universal color schemes, right? So if I'm looking at a dashboard, no matter who made it, if I see a bar that's green, something that's red, and I have a target line, it's pretty continuous throughout where I'm looking. So I'm a big believer of keeping that, the functionality very simple in there. So if I'm using colors, my best practice is, again, 2 or 3 different colors to tell that story. So to me, as long as it tells the story and at the end it solves the problem, I'm all for it. I'm not going to make, a time series craft that rainbow color just for the fact of making it a rainbow, right? So it has to tell that story. It has to align with what I'm trying to accomplish in the end.
That's literally what I say in my DATAcated storytelling course. I have a huge section just on color. And I always tell people you can use a color rainbow scheme only if you're talking about Skittles, or I forget the other example I give. But yeah, there's usually no excuse to create a rainbow scheme. Oh, Crayola, crayons, or Skittles. Those are the only 2 reasons that you should have a rainbow color scheme. But quick note on the red and green. There has been some research now around color blindness. Not sure how familiar you are with it, especially for men. I think it's 1 in 12 men suffer from color deficiency issues where they see the colors red and green as almost exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So now it's blue and orange. Just FYI for anyone who's out there trying to pick colors. I think that's why Tableau and some others have defaulted to blue and orange diverging sequential themes. So just putting that out there, but very good tips as long as it tells the story, right? Essentially, same answer.
I have 2 users that are actually colorblind. So when I create applications for their department, I go to them after the application is done and make sure that everything's they can basically see everything and read everything. It's a different experience. That's something I never thought I would encounter when I went into IT is color blindness.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even imagine that. But now there are also websites that you can upload an image of your data visualization, and it'll show you what it looks like to somebody who is colorblind. You can also see what it looks like in black and white in case your users are going to print this in black and white. So a lot of things to consider. But just quickly going back to our main topic here, Qlik Sense. That course is coming out March 18th. And Cody, if people have any questions on Qlik Sense or storytelling, or they want to continue this conversation, where can they go? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn primarily. Cody Riemenschneider. Hopefully you can take a screenshot of my names. I doubt you will be able to spell that after we're done here. I also show up on Kate on your page a lot too, that you've tagged me in. So if people can't find me, go to Kate's page, everyone that follows Kate. If you don't, I'm not sure why you don't. But go ahead and shoot her a connection as well. But I am on her page as she tagged me in a few posts. If you can't find me, that's where you can find me.
There's not many Cody Riemenschneiders out there, so hopefully they're able
there's
to
not too
find.
many.
Yes. Well, Cody, thank you so much for being on the DATAcated show. I'll just quickly remind people that the 30% discount is up until basically end of day, March 17th, since the course goes live on March 18th. Just use Qlik 30 at checkout to get that 30% off the pre-sale at the DATAcated Academy. All right. Awesome. Thanks, everybody who tuned in. And thank you again, Cody, for your time.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you guys joining in.